Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about the secret code to a successful project initiation for BIM data. So I'm going to be talking a number of things, but the underlying essence of all this is BIM data. So just to introduce myself, I'm Ian Rogers. I have two companies, Ace Project Solutions is a consultancy company, and we just launched the ProSync brand, which is all about the system to work, which I'll go through briefly in a minute. Of how we think we can do projects better. And we are also partners with Plannerly, who are a sponsor of this conference. So I've got 45 years experience in the construction and property industry, started in mainstream construction and facilities management, and into structured finance of projects through PPPs. My colleague here is Chris Mackenzie-Grieve, who's also got considerable amount of experience in construction, primarily in project management and procurement, and he is passionate about changing the industry as I am. And we have another colleague, Andy Hamer, who's very much the systems and software side of the business. So our vision is to fundamentally change how we build and maintain our buildings for the benefit of all. And I'll explain the background to why we've done this. So hopefully you'll possibly recognize this amongst clients and developers. So how late are they going to be, they say. Where has all the budget gone? Is a common issue. Why are there so many quality problems? They shout. What will it be like for the users? Do I have the right building coming through? How did we get into this mess? I'm sure you've all related to this one way or another. And this is backed up by some statistics where eminent people have done studies showing that when you look at projects in terms of being on budget, only 48% of them get on budget. On time and on budget, only 8.5% of projects hit that milestone. And on time, budget, and everything else met, only 0.5% of the projects meet all criteria in terms of completing a project. And McKinsey and Partners have done another study internationally where they say 98% of projects fail by delays, disputes, cost overruns, quality issues, etc. That's a pretty damning indictment of our industry. When you look at how a project is made up, 80% of projects costs are time related, and only 28% of product is for 100% of the capital spend. So in other words, we look at the pure construction cost, but don't look at everything else that goes around it. So we've developed a secret code that we want to go through. So we start off with 5 principles, 4 pillars, 1 system, and 3 outcomes. So our code is 5413, and if you follow this, we believe you'll get a better project at the end of the day. So taking the 5 principles, these are transparency, and collaboration, or being collaborative, which I think are 2 things that are not fully present in most projects. Continuously improving, which is something we believe is the core of what we should be doing. We should be learning from each project and continuously improving to the next one. Knowledge sharing and data driven. So this is about true integrated collaborative working based on data. We believe there are 4 pillars. So we start off with the lifecycle delivery process. We have an integrated digital platform, and we'll cover this a little bit more, but I don't believe that there is such a thing as a CDE, or common data environment. You cannot have one single data environment. You've got to have multiple databases integrating together on a digital platform. You have to have people with purpose. The people have to know what they're doing and how they are doing it. And you have to have a knowledge hub and improvement hub, so that you're continuously improving everything you do, data capturing everything on an anonymous basis, learning from those lessons and improving it for the next project. And only that can be done on an integrated digital platform away from everybody on an independent basis. So 1 system, and I know there's a heck of a lot here, and today's presentation isn't so much about the system, but it just gives you an outline of the process that we have put together to integrate everything together. So we start off with project evaluation and the first 3 stages, which I'll be going through in more detail, and then the rest of it, which follows pretty well the RRBA plan of work. We're looking at operational and we're looking at life cycle. We've got the knowledge hub and continuous improvement hub right in the center there. On the left-hand side, we've got the integrated digital platform with everything touching a project integrated into that digitally. And then you have the project integration leader that pulls all the parties together. You could call that a program manager, looking at all the operations, the component partners, and all of this sort of stuff. So we have three outcomes as a result of all this system: better, faster, and for less, which is our strapline. So we have better quality, better people, better suppliers, better for clients, and better for the environment overall. It's faster to build, we believe. It's faster to get to the return on investment, and it's faster to get to use the building, and it is faster to get to the next project. So we believe that by doing things faster, you have to spend time up front to get the project right, set it up right, and everything else. And that runs in two parallel lines, which I'll cover off in the next three elements, which are what I want to talk about. For less, it's going to be less capital costs, less maintenance in the life cycle of the project. The whole life cycle costs are going to be cheaper, and you're going to get more product per amount of money spent. So this is an integrated approach to cover all of these issues. So going into more detail on the first stages, if you like, our philosophy is that we have to begin with the end in mind. It's important that we take the client's ideas and really disseminate what he really wants or she wants into fine detail. And I'll go through these first three stages, which cover off all of this. But it is a critical phase of any project, is thinking about that project. This thinking has to be done at the start, not on the, although we will be thinking as we go through, we have to put a lot of effort into thinking about the project up front before the design team is appointed. Yes, we may have design consultants and other people helping formulate this, but it's essential that we formulate this detail. We start that thinking by knowing what the end is and what we want to achieve. So we really have to understand what the client wants, work with them, and deliver that criteria in fine detail to the design team. The culmination of that thinking will tell us what is possible and what is not possible. Then we have to evaluate the viability and set up the project in our way, the process way. And then we never stop thinking. There's always a continuous improvement process to go through. So the initial stages are three. So you've got the project evaluation, project viability, and project setup. And I'm going to go through each of these three areas in more detail now. So project evaluation, this is critical that we sit down with a client and look at his big why. Why is he doing this project? It's critical that we understand why the project is being done. And often the client does not know this, believe it or not. So he's got one idea where he thinks he's going, but in reality, it should be something else. And that's because they don't fully understand why they're doing it, what the end goal is, and what the main purpose is. Which then leads us on to the next thing of delivering the project vision. What is the vision for this project? What are we trying to achieve out of this project? And this drives the whole project process from inception to realization, as it gives context to all the stakeholders involved. So that everybody has the project vision, they know where they're going and what they're trying to aim for. You might deviate as you go through the project, as does an airline with the pilot. He knows where he's going, but how he gets there may vary depending on weather patterns and various other things. It's the same with a project. But if you don't know where you're going and you haven't got that project vision, how do you know you're going to get there? So at this stage, in the evaluation stage, it's important we start thinking about data, which in my opinion is not done properly. So at this stage, we're looking at the organization's information requirements. Data is the lifeblood of a modern construction project. I think we'll all agree about that. But we need a blueprint for the digital framework and the information architecture, which is sadly lacking in most projects, in my opinion. This ensures that the project aligns not only with its immediate objectives, but also with the broader spectrum of operational, maintenance, and facilities management aspects. And this is an element that is, again, in the majority of projects, missed. So I've got a good friend of mine who was working on a new hospital that was designed and developed and built using BIM. He was really excited. for the mobilization, because he could think he could get all the asset data out of the model. Went to mobilize the project, he couldn't get a single stitch of information about the asset management out of the model because it hadn't been set up right at the beginning for all stakeholders. So he had to go back to his traditional way and take extra time to rebuild all the asset data. So this is about future-proofing your project through data-driven decisions. So this runs in parallel with the, if you like, the information and stuff we're gathering to feed into the design. The data is a separate stream, but it has to be thought up front. And then you have to categorize the information requirements that you are looking for all the stakeholders. Project viability. And yes, you can look at the project viability at this stage. It is possible to develop a very detailed project initiation document, something I've developed from the Prince2 principles into about 35 different sections. So it encompasses all the guides for your project's direction. So this is the Bible, if you like, for the project. It is a comprehensive roadmap that is meticulously crafted through the collaboration input from all stakeholders and specialists. So everybody has an input into this. From this, we can disseminate the project brief for the design team. This is the document that aligns the design team with the vision, as I mentioned earlier, and serves as a guiding light throughout the design phase. And it is possible to do this in fine detail without any design criteria being present in terms of drawings. We have software that we can actually develop room data sheets at a very early stage, so we get the basics of what a client wants in every single room in terms of equipment, how it's to operate, and all that sort of thing, which then feeds into the design team so they know exactly what they've got to do and how they do their magic to make it look nice. And then we can do a feasibility study. And it needs to be done at this early stage, taking in all the operational costs, not just the construction costs. So this assesses the assumptions against real-world viability, and it examines economic, technical, and operational feasibility. So we know at this early stage, before we spend huge amounts of money, whether this project is viable or not, and if it isn't, how we could make it viable. And if we can't make it viable, then it's a big no, and we walk on to the next project. And the client hasn't wasted a huge amount of money taking a project forward through the design process to find that it's not actually going to work for him. So these are important stages at this stage. It's probably the most critical stage of the whole project, putting all of this together. So we then move on to the project viability. And again, within the project viability in terms of data, we're looking at asset information requirements, which defines what information needs to be collected, specifies the information needed to be supporting the asset management, as I've said, and the maintenance throughout the asset lifecycle. How the asset information will be managed and assessed or even accessed, and how it will support decision-making during the design, construction, and operation. So we're looking at data requirements and the asset information to feed into everything on this process and on this journey. So the final stage is the project setup, which again, often is done way down the line when the design team's appointed and where we go. So we have the BIM execution plan, which needs to be done now. I'm sure we're all familiar with the BIM execution plan, but this is where your naming conventions, your project approach to annotations and abbreviations is dealt with, how the technology infrastructure needs to be set up, including hardware and software, and how we're going to do the data transfer management and how all these integrated databases are to be achieved. We look at a building hierarchy as to how it's all going to be structured from an operational point of view as well as a build point of view. And then we have all the various plans in terms of health and safety, quality, sustainability, risk registers. All of this needs to be dealt with up front. However, all of this will then be evolving as we go through and we get more and more information. So as the design progresses, we update all of this so that we've got a constantly evolving and improving set of documents and plans. So in terms of the project setup, again, there's another set of data here in terms of the employer's information requirements, which should guide the collection of the delivery of information. Technical details of software platforms, definition of levels of detail, and all this sort of thing. Making sure we've got all the data sets named and dealt with so that all stakeholders can get the data out. So not just the asset management at the end through the operational phase, but so that the quantity surveyor can get out his cost control data, So the project manager can get out his planning data, all from the same model, which is what it was set up to do in the first place. And then we have the commercial details of the BIM model, the deliverables, the timing of data drops, and the definition of information purposes, as I've already alluded to. So it's important that we set all this up before we go to the design team. Having done this, the design team knows what is coming and how this can be all set up. They can price their project, and if they go through the design process properly and sign it all off, when they come to the technical design, they can do that as a one-shot, and it should all be correct, and then the contractor can have all the information he needs as well, all the way through. And more importantly, by setting up this data at the beginning, for those of you who are familiar with the UK environment and the Building Safety Act, this goes all the way to dealing with the golden thread of information that is needed to sort out your data and all your sources of data and all your sources of components in the building, because at the end of the day, you're going to be capturing all the as-built data as well. So this is a very important piece. And in summary, we've gone with the secret code, 5413, 5 principles, 4 pillars, 1 system integrated together on an integrated project delivery platform, and 3 outcomes. And therefore you have to look at the first 3 stages of project initiation, project viability, and project setup. So thank you, ProSync. You've made our lives a breeze from the client. 5413 is my key to unlock my success. So hopefully you've enjoyed that and it's given you some food for thought. And if there are any questions, please put them in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them. Thank you very much and goodbye.